You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's story doesn't come from a hunter or a scientist, but from a teenager whose senior year graduation gift turned into a 4-night encounter with the unexplained. In the mossy hills outside Forks, Washington, Jonathan, his brother, and their dad joined a BFRO expedition, and what followed included something no one expected: the haunting sound of bagpipes echoing through the woods, and an answer that came in the form of power knocks, massive footprints, and a thermal sighting of something peering from the hickory brush. This isn't a secondhand tale, it's Jonathan's story, and you'll want to hear every minute of it, so stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Jonathan. He's from the Pacific Northwest. Jonathan reached out to me about an expedition he was on and some interesting things that happened on it, but how's it going today, Jonathan?
Oh, pretty well. And yourself?
I'm having a great night. I'm glad to be able to talk to you. And, I'm going to go ahead and let you get right into it.
Yeah. So me and my brother, my dad attended a expedition through the BFRO last July. And the group was about a little over 20 of us. And we went out to Olympic Peninsula, the area around Forks. And they constantly kept telling us the whole time that they basically promised that they could put us into a situation where they could try their best to have something happen, but they can't promise it, obviously. And we were completely surprised by just how much happened with the span of like 4 days. It was one of their more eventful ones they'd had in the past couple of years.
That's awesome. And was this the first time you were being involved with a Bigfoot event like this? Or like how long had you been into Bigfoot for?
Oh, yeah. Since I was a kid. It was more of like, funny enough, it was kind of like my senior year graduation present in a way, which I thought was kind of fun. But yeah, no, I've been into it for forever. So it's just more of like I finally got a chance to do it, you know?
That's awesome. Is your dad really into it as well?
Yeah, he is. The three of us were. It was one of those things that we kind of all fancied. We just never got around to actually sitting down and finally doing it. We're like, oh, man, we actually have a chance to do it, so let's do it.
How did you get set up with going on the expedition? Did you have to get a lot of gear, or had you been hiking before?
Yeah, so, did the whole, went to Cabela's, picked up a couple of camping materials and whatnot, and they kind of did like a grocery store run. They gave us a rundown of what you should and shouldn't bring. But yeah, it was just more of just getting the supplies in general, like the tents and the food you need. And the only downside is obviously there wasn't any showers because we were literally camping for 4 days, but it was honestly really fun. Like I never thought, being like just not showering for 4 days with a bunch of 20 random strangers would be like that fun, if that makes sense.
I get it. I've also been out on a few things, not BFRO related, but it was independent. And it's just really nice to get out there, disconnect from different things.
Especially if you're in the Pacific Northwest where it's just beautiful all year long.
Oh, that's true. I mean, you could probably go to a grocery store and it'd still be beautiful because it's in the Pacific Northwest. But
yeah.
Can you paint the scene for us of what kind of area that you went in? Because I know you have to be very careful about how you tell where we're at for this.
Yeah. So that just is because it was private property. Like, because normally when you sign up to do a BFRO expedition, this is actually, I thought this was really cool. They make you sign an NDA that basically says you're not allowed to disclose where we're going, how we're going, or what we're doing until after the event. Because obviously they don't want some Joe Schmo dressing up in a gorilla suit beforehand as a third party and setting stuff up. They wanted to make it as fun and as actual genuine as possible. But we actually had to sign a second NDA because this was private property, basically saying we're not allowed to disclose this. If we're to do stuff like this, like podcasts, or tell other people on a platform like this, we're not allowed to disclose, like, obviously, because we were literally camping in another person's backyard. Like their house was visible from our tents. It was a pretty bizarre experience, but it was pretty cool. It was out by Forks-ish. That's kind of where it was.
I mean, there's a lot of wild stuff out there besides the Twilight stuff, but you've got like what the Hoh rainforest is out there.
Oh yeah.
Do you know if this was a property where they had reached out to the BFRO with a sighting and they had a lot of activity happening on that property?
So yes, it was a mix of both. It was more of, it had been in their eyesights for a while, and they'd been there a couple of times, and it was more of like a private, one of those high up on the food chain, I guess. Only a handful of people knew, and they finally decided to release it out to the public to actually try to, do stuff with, like to do an actual expedition on.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So can you kind of walk me through what happened first day when you first got there?
Yeah. So we got there in the afternoon-ish, just because the drive was a little interesting. And the time they arrived, we were going to do an evening orientation with everybody there. And they kind of told us what to expect, like how the night walks work, they call it night operations and whatnot. They're basically everyone just picked their camping site and kind of went from there. And nothing really happened in the day, but it was more of in the evening we did our night operations. My brother actually, kind of for kicks and giggles, but the expedition hosts thought this was a very good idea. My brother bought his literal Scottish bagpipes, and they thought it would actually be a brilliant tool to use because, you've ever heard of bagpipes? They're pretty stinking loud. You put them on a high elevation. There's nothing in at least 2 miles that can't hear it. And they thought it would be a brilliant idea to use that on a night ops with, one team was with, the bagpipes, which me, myself and my dad were on. And there was another group that circled around like the mountain because we were at a base of the mountain. And there was a third team that was a couple of guys. They were going to go camping up on the top of the mountain and just stay the night there. But yeah, no, it was a pretty bizarre experience because it was just like my brother was sitting on the hillside playing bagpipes, and there was a clearing below us, and it carried after he played, you could hear it just carry for like an extra 3 or 4 seconds. It was really cool.
Do you know if that ever had been used in the history of the BFRO, or is this probably a first time deal?
I actually don't even think so. I don't even, to be honest with you, because I know talking to these BFRO guys, they were so cool. They basically very much heavily distinguished that there was a difference between the Finding Bigfoot TV show and the BFRO. They worked very, and I don't even think they did that type of stuff, even on Finding Bigfoot, like the show. So I actually think that was probably the first time they did something like that. And I think it's just because this bagpipes is such a hard instrument to learn that it was just really off-putting. But we used it, and it was, to be honest, I think it was pretty effective. What they were telling us, because something that really I thought was interesting, that they constantly told us that there is no experts in Bigfoot. Anyone who says that is basically just lying to your face. There are people that are more experienced that have just learned from working in the field, right? And something that they told us from their experience is that because of TV shows like Finding Bigfoot and documentaries, that people kind of kept doing howls and whatnot, to where they've noticed is that they don't really do howls anymore. They just kind of knock or make other noises. So hearing a bagpipe, I think, really startled them. And after we played, essentially, basically what happened was my brother was playing some tunes on a hillside. There's another group that was below us kind of circling around. And there was also a group in base camp. And when we were going down the hillside playing, open, clear cut, and eventually when he stopped playing, and while they were playing, the base camp immediately on radio started calling off that there was knocks going on across the road behind the base camp, immediately. And these weren't from what we talked about later that evening, is these were not just simple tree snaps. These were what you can traditionally call the stereotypical power knocks, just the wham, 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 like a baseball bat to a tree, which really got everyone excited. And there was other knocks people were hearing on the other side of the road towards our base camp. And that was really bizarre to hear it in 2 different places at the same time, basically, because it's oh, okay, so you don't know that this isn't normal.
Did they say if there was a pattern to them at all, or?
No, I don't recall them ever mentioning it was a pattern, but I just remember, because I was with group A, and they basically just called on the radio that they were hearing knocks, and they were just describing it that evening when everything was said and done.
So then you've got you've got knocks happening. You got power knocks. You've got your brother playing bagpipes. Did the bagpipes continue after the knocks, or were you like, okay, let's settle down with the bagpipes?
He actually kept going. He brought it all the way into base camp, and nothing. Basically, all the groups kind of met up after a good hour or two, and we just decided to go back to base camp. Just sat around a fire, having fun. Telling stories and just in general having fun. And my brother kept playing in the base camp a little bit, and nothing really happened while we were in base camp. However, when it was more of when me and my father were going back to bed is when stuff like really kicked off that evening. So all the groups were in, except for there was like a group of the more of the quote unquote BFRO leaders. There was a couple of them that were camping on the hillside where my brother was playing the bagpipes for the night. And before the group heading back, they all had thermals and all this high-tech gear and whatnot. And one of them spotted something on the thermal. Unfortunately, just how things are, none of them had the ability to record on their thermal. But one of them spotted on a thermal, and then they had two other people seeing the exact same thing on the thermal. So it's kind of like one of those weird experiences where you have three people with three different thermals all seeing the exact same thing. And what they were describing, and we saw this the next day through the recreation, but basically it was this really thick hickory bush. So you really can't see through it, or like even the thermal can't peek through it, but they would see like the top of I don't know how to describe it, like a cone head basically. And it would like peek up and then go down, move like 6 or 7 feet to the right, peek up, look down. It would keep going. And it did this about a dozen or so times from what I recall from what them saying. But it was just really weird that all three of them were seeing the exact same thing. And this was like way thick in the woods. Like there wasn't anybody from our group back there. And then on top of that, there was a third guy that was behind that was kind of acting as like a watchman. He kind of was following us like 30, 40 yards behind. And he kind of was trying to get the group's attention because he was hearing something walking behind them. And of course, when that happened, everyone turned the attention to wherever the walking sound was coming from, up on the hill. It was behind us by about 20 or 30 yards. And I personally think, looking back to it, it was kind of like a decoy trying to get us to distract it, because they basically were looking down to it in this hickory bush patch, and there really wasn't anywhere for it to go. And there was the second one behind us, behind the group, up the hill, and it was like making sounds, and not like sounds, but it was like making really loud, like stomping sounds. And I think it personally distracted the group just long enough for the other one to get away. That's what the group conceded with hindsight the next day. So that happened, and then the group came back, and then everyone was kind of like really pumped up after that happened.
Wow. And was that just the first day then?
Oh, that was just the first night.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And how late was all that happening again?
This happened probably between 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. So in the span of 3 hours.
Okay. So happened at 11 p.m. And then how late did you guys go to bed? Or did you do a thing where it's like you're staying up all night?
Oh, first night, I think we went to bed around like midnight or 1 a.m. We didn't stay up that late. But it was when me and my dad, we were going back to the truck, or in our truck where all our food was, and where me and my dad wanted a Twinkie because we just brought some. So we went back to the camp to get one, and we heard this rustling in the bushes, and we couldn't describe it. honestly, because there was another guy truck right next to us, and there was kind of like a little path into the woods, and guys using it as a cheat sheet. We kind of used it as a little mini bathroom, this little path into the woods. Mm-hmm. And at first we thought it was like them. Like I didn't really think it was much of anything until it like stopped moving. Like it just completely stopped, and we're like, okay, whatever. Like if just the guy wants his privacy, whatever. But the thing was, it kept moving, and it wasn't until we heard. The only way I can describe it is if you took a 2x4 and just clean snapped it, you just snapped it in two. That was when I freaked out, because I was like, that is not a person. I was like, oh, okay. We're like, oh, okay, this is different. And then that was to our facing the woods. That was to our 11 o'clock. And then a couple seconds later, we heard heavy stomping, and then we heard another snap to about our 9 o'clock. And then at that point, we realized, okay, it's these hickory bushes, like the owners of the house surrounded the entire property in these really tall, 10-foot high, about 3 or 4 feet thick hickory bushes, because, they're also were Bigfooters too. So they wanted to see if they could bring them into the property, essentially, because, if it's a lot more, to their experience, they felt that it was a lot more comfortable if these things had like more security, if that makes sense, like to where they could just kind of freely approach people without being seen, because you really couldn't see, even with a flashlight, you could not see through these hickory bushes. But we were hearing this, and this couldn't have been more than 30 yards back behind these bushes. And at that point, we went back to the cabin, or to the group at base camp, and we were telling like, hey, we think we're hearing something behind our camp. And at that point, everyone kind of freaked out, and there was a kind of a small group that went out into the woods. I didn't really go with them. I stayed in base camp, but like that really was freaky. It was just in that moment, you just hear that like 2x4 snap, and you're just like, oh, what was that?
That's wild. And that's a really interesting piece of info. So you said that the people that own the property were also Bigfooters. So do you know if did they purchase the property because they knew Bigfoot was there, or did they discover Bigfoot and just happen to be Bigfooters?
I couldn't tell you, but I honestly don't know, to be honest. I think it was just more of a convenience thing. I think they noticed it and just like, hey, let's just put this and plug this in and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Any interesting sounds have been recorded around the property?
Oh yeah, definitely. Not just that property in general, but there's another organization that we did stuff with. That was the Olympic Project. I don't know if you know those guys. But those guys have set up audio recorders like in that whole woods, and they were showing us like what they caught over the past couple of years, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. So the OP guys were there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's great, man. When you guys went to sleep eventually, and were you woken up in the morning? Anything weird happen at, like a 2 or 3 a.m. type deal?
No. To what I remember, I don't think anyone that night woke up to anything in particular.
What's the morning like on a BFRO expedition?
I mean, everyone kind of like wakes up and does their own thing. It's more of they do a nightcap, like a recap of what everything happened at 11 a.m. I think 11 a.m. to noonish, like right around lunchtime. So everyone kind of did their own thing. But the reason before the morning thing happened, we got approached by the BFRO leads. Me and my dad did. Early in the morning, right after everyone broke up, they kind of disclosed us to the side and talked to us. And they wanted us to disclose what happened because they wanted to wait until 11 a.m. to really tell. But of course, word spread of the snaps that me and my dad heard. And the leads wanted to talk to us because they said that there was a couple of like BFRO guys that went around back there that morning, and they had found tracks following the exact same line of the snaps we heard. And they wanted to like tell us, be like, hey, like don't tell anyone yet. You kind of want to like get the cast in before people go out there and like destroy the tracks, because apparently they were really good tracks.
Oh wow!
So they wanted to like go out there and cast it and whatnot.
How big were the tracks?
When we saw them, like if you have ever seen tracks before, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's just bizarre. It's otherworldly. Like there's nothing else to describe it. There was about one of the better tracker guys in our group he said he was able to track it for about 100 yards under the woods ish, not very far until he lost it. But there was about 7 or 8 really good tracks. They were about 6 to 8 inches wide and about 20 inches long. And they were about almost 1.5 inches deep into the ground. Like, and this wasn't mud. This was straight dirt.
So a lot of weight to push that down for sure.
Oh yeah. And there was another guy in our group. He was 6'5"-ish, 6'6". He's probably 250, 260 pounds, probably a little bit more heavier than that. And he tried to jump with both feet next to the footprint to see how deep he could get. He couldn't even get an inch at all. Not even close.
Were there any interesting details in the the track casts that were found, like thermal ridges or anything out of the ordinary?
I was talking to them, a couple of the Olympic Project and BFRO guys, and they were discussing over it. And they actually initially thought that somebody was hoaxing us because they were way too good. Like a couple of those guys were saying these are the best tracks we've ever gotten, like in our entire like Bigfoot career. They kept doing like recalls from last night, like, hey, everyone was accounted for. Like, this isn't somebody hoaxing us. But it was the part that just really was freaky is that one of the steps that came off a log, and the log was not only indented, but you could see it pressing into the ground. And like the toes were splaying in each step, which is obviously a big teller if it's fake or not, because like the fake ones are like the wood clomper.
Right.
Don't like move around very much.
That is really cool. So how did the rest of the group take that info when that was shared?
They were unbelievably like excited. Like it was just one of those cool things. Cause like, it was one of those things like others take it a step further to say that why we thought they were real. Cause within perfect eyesight, you could see at the height of 5 foot to 6 foot, you can't really see much, but somebody came in and was able to look at it from an angle of like 6 or 7 feet. And it was a perfect eye line to our camp. But where hickory bushes were, it completely covered it. You couldn't, in the middle of the dark, you wouldn't know this thing is looking at you, and you could have been 30 feet away from it because it would have just been standing still, just looking at you. That's all it did. And that was like really creepy to think that it was just within like only a couple yards of our camp, just looking at it, just watching us.
Oh,
you know?
Wow. Yeah. That's really wild stuff. Was anyone able to get like a 3D scan of it as well, or just stick to track casts?
I believe one of the organizers for the expedition was going to do a 3D cast of it. I cannot recall. I believe they did. I could actually ask them later, but I don't know if they did or not.
So everyone's pumped from the news that you found some tracks, and then the news of what happened to you and your father. So then what happens later that day?
Following, we did a couple day walks. They actually showed us how to like cast tracks, which I thought was kind of cool. It was just cool to see like tracks being casted in real time. Did a couple day walks, and then we actually did a recreation of the night before. We saw the cone heads. And the reason why I was saying it was around 6-7 feet tall is the bushes of the bush line. Like we couldn't see the person. We had a visual, like tried to set up to see if we could see them in the bushes. We totally couldn't. And they're just the tree line. It was just with hindsight when you do recreations, just how like well hidden a lot of things are in the cover of darkness. Like just things could be right in front of you and you just do not know. It was really, really freaky doing a recreation and notice that, yeah, this thing was probably at least 6'6" to like 7 foot.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Was that around the same time of day that it happened originally that you did it too?
Yeah, it was originally it happened at night, and we did a recreation in the day, and it was just weird to see it like side by side, like just like from what everyone's recollections. And then the guy actually put on bright clothing, like neon green clothing, and actually went up the hill. Tried his best to get up there because there wasn't any game trails. This was like a straight inclined hill, just forest and shrubs everywhere. And he laid on the top of the hill and started making noises, and we could hear him, but we definitely could not see him. So it was just like another thing that was freaky that was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you said it was a 4-day expedition.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the second day.
The second day we decided, or the second night, that night ops, we decided to kill the bagpipes because in my personal opinion, and this is something that the expedition leaders agreed to too, is that just thought it was a good opinion, was that, let's be real here. If you're living out in the woods 24/7, you're going to get like, there's nothing for you to do really, you know? So it's like when you hear something like bagpipes, it kind of like It's just different. It's like everyone else. I mean, think about it. If somebody was playing bagpipes in their backyard, all the neighbors are going to open their windows being like, who in there, what in the world? What's going on here? You know? So I think it's just like a natural response because they're reported to be curious. So I just thought that was bizarre. But the second night we killed the bagpipes because we thought it would be better to see if like they would make noise in response to like other noises that we did. The second group A, I was with Group B. We did split up into two teams. Group A reported or thought that they were being followed. Nothing really happened with my group. I was in Group B. Nothing really happened the whole night. But Group A thought they were being followed, and they had this new developed strategy that the BFRO is using because people found out that these things, or well, not really found out, but have like come to some sort of a consensus that they thought that these things will mimic your footsteps to kind of like mask your height, mask their steps, essentially. So we do like a 3, 2, 1 stop where all of us just kind of like counts down to 1, and then we stop. And then if it's always timed, you know, you can hear like a crunch, crunch, crunch of it like stopping like in the background. And that is a really freaky experience, especially when it's like, it's never directly behind you. It's always to like your 3 o'clock or your 6 o'clock or like 7, like it's like it's to your sides behind you, you know. And that was really freaky for them to hear, like with hindsight, like hearing them describe it, you know.
Did you actually hear that play out?
I personally heard that the third night, which was the final night. I heard that on the final night, but the second night, no, nothing really happened. I had a pair of parabolics on, and I heard whistling constantly, which we deduced later by listening to whistling sounds of birds. It was a bird, but it was just really cool to hear like a pair of parabolics, you know, just listening to it. But yeah, that was really all that happened night 2. We were hoping to try to lead it into the camp again, and no, nothing really happened with that.
Gotcha. So you got a lot of stuff on the first day, recreation on the second day, and then the third day sounds like that was your last day to try to get stuff to happen again. Because fourth day doesn't really sound like much happened, or it's the last day.
Yeah, fourth day we just kind of pack up and we pack up and leave.
Yep.
But the third day, that was really interesting. There was a guy who showed us basically this sound system that he set up in the Olympic Peninsula that he would just record sound, and he would just spend hours just going through it. He would record a year's worth of sound and then go through that audio log. It was really interesting, the stuff that he just caught, like, because he was saying that there was a recent study out of I don't know what college it was, but that specifically chimpanzees can see infrared, which was what trail cameras see. They see infrared. So, which is why when they were trying to take trail camera footage of chimpanzees, they couldn't ever get them. The chimpanzees were elusive.
Yeah.
But when they put up audio recorders, they were hearing the chimpanzees left and right. So this guy who came to our expedition, who was telling us about it, he thought it was actually, why don't I just apply the exact same knowledge to Bigfoot? Like just no trail cameras, only audio recorders. And he was showing us some of the things he caught. It was pretty cool. Just the things he's caught over the years, just like random weird sounds like you wouldn't expect to hear in a forest, you know?
Was that a OP guy?
Yeah.
I bet I know who that was.
Yeah. I think we both know who we're talking about. He's a really cool dude.
He's so cool.
He just
he's one of the
on.
nicest guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he's so nice. We were talking about the exact same guy.
Yep.
But yeah. And it was really cool to listen to all the things he's caught and heard over the years. And that day, nothing really too much happened. But it was that night was actually, I think, was like the highlight of the whole trip. I mean, the foot trips obviously were like its own highlight,
right?
But it was just more of my personal highlight. And so the final night, we did the exact same thing. We brought out the bagpipes because we're like, okay, it worked the first night, not the second night. So common sense kind of tells you, okay, let's bring out the bagpipes again. And we did 3 groups again. Guys on the hill. There were guys circling the mountain, and we were on the hillside. And the hill. This time, going down the hill, we didn't hear anything. And it just felt dead the whole night, you know, like just the whole night, there was just nothing. And I was with a group of people. And it was just our last night. It's like 1 a.m. Nothing happened. And me and a group of people, we were like, yeah, we want to find something. Like, this is our last night. We're going to go out. We're going to come back not until the sun rises, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so this is really freaking cool. There's this one guy, a survival expert, my brother, and a literal Afghanistan vet. Like, the four of us just went running out into the woods. Not like running out in the woods, but we went really deep into the woods. We went like at least 2 miles in, like just random off the trail, game trail. We're going in, and one of the expedition leaders is like, wait, why don't we just start like doing knocks? We're deep enough to where they're definitely not going to hear us. And the radios couldn't pick it up. So like, yeah. So we started, the four of us started doing knocks for a little bit. We sat there for a bit. Nothing really happened. We were there out for like an hour and a half-ish. And we decided to walk back. I had a pair of parabolics on. The Afghanistan vet, I'm not kidding you, brought his actual military grade helmet with like the earmuffs and the eye goggles and everything. It was something out of like Call of Duty.
Oh,
I swear.
awesome.
It was really cool. And the other travel guy bought his like first aid kit and his massive like survival bag. And my brother bought a pair of night vision goggles as well. So we were like very set up. But it was when we started walking back was when the creepy stuff started to happen. So at first, the only way I could describe it is if this wasn't as loud as a 2x4 snap. It just sounded like you're just like walking by a tree and you like grab upon a low hanging branch that's like just at your eye level and you hang on it and you like let it snap. That's what it sounded like. You know, I heard that, and both me and the guy at the time, the vet, we both looked at each other because he had enhanced hearing and I had enhanced hearing, and we're like, oh, did you hear that? We're like, yeah, you did. It's just kind of one of those cool moments where it's like when you both know you're not going insane because you both look at each other like, oh, did you hear that? You know?
Right.
So we stopped for a minute. We heard something, and then we started hearing the footsteps again, and it was behind us to our right. It was like around 5 o'clock ish behind us. So like, okay, cool. So let's. That's one thing that they told us was that like if you think it's following you, don't let it think that it's following you. Like, if that makes sense. Like, you want to outsmart it. You want to make sure that you want to act like a normal person. It's just because it's curious. The moment it thinks you're timid, it's not going to want to approach, you know? So we just kept walking, and we did the whole 3, 2, 1 stop, you know? And that's when I got to hear the heavy, just the leaves just crunch, crunch, crunch. That's when I got to hear it with the parabolics on, which is just enhanced hearing. And that was freaky when both me and the vet looked at each other and were like, yeah, this thing is definitely following us. And it wasn't that far behind us. It was probably around 50 yards ish. But the thing is that's the other part that freaks me out is you kind of know when this thing's around because you don't hear any birds. You don't hear any nightlife. It's just dead quiet. So the sound kind of carries farther when there's no nightlife, you know? And we started walking, and we kept going back towards the trail. And we were like, you know what? One of the leaders of the group is like, I've been practicing all year to do like an intimidation growl. I want to try it. So he turned around, and we waited for a second, and then he did the really loud, like, I don't even know how to describe it, like a gorilla grunt or something. And the part that really scared me, and this actually still scares me to this day. Okay. We actually heard the footsteps go backwards and just proceeded to go backwards into the woods until we couldn't hear it anymore. It just kept going until we couldn't hear it.
Really?
And that freaked me out. Yeah. And then a couple of seconds later, we walked back down the trail. We're on an actual paved trail at this point, like the main like trail you'd see in the woods where like bikes would go back and forth and whatnot. Behind us, immediately, me and the vet turned around because the only way I can describe it is it sounded like you took a rock, like about the size of a softball, and just threw it along the pavement. You know, you hear like that skidding sound. Yep. We heard 2 of those, just like skid, and just like across the room. We both turned around. I was like, was that a rock? Like, it was only like 30 feet behind us, but it was just like, what? It was just weird. And we did the whole 3, 2, 1 stop again. And then we heard it again. We're like, okay, this thing's, I don't know, it's back, but it's back for something, you know? We did it a couple more times. The final time when we got closest to the camp, we didn't hear anything. But on that trip, we headed back. We told everybody about what was going on. So everyone was kind of on hindsight and high alert, you know? But nothing else happened that night, the rest of that night. But at that point, it was like 3 a.m. So it's like the whole night had been spent at that point.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, that must have been hard to go to sleep after that, for sure.
Yeah, right.
So, Was that, I mean, after that, then you're pretty much, uh, getting camp all packed up. But do you think that was the craziest thing that happened during that expedition then?
The footprints were definitely freaky. They were just bizarre to see. I think experiencing this type of stuff in real time is what freaked me out. To actually hear the footsteps behind you, to hear a rock skidding across the pavement, and then to look at another person who is a military vet who uses this stuff all the time, have panic on his face, and he's like, "What the heck? What's that?"
Right.
Like,
yeah,
that was
totally
freaky to see. You're like, "Oh, okay."
Have there been any visuals on that property or in that area?
Supposedly, other people who've come on their own personal, they have too. Not on that expedition particularly, but yeah, that was really bizarre to hear.
That's wild. So I'm guessing there was probably like some final, not, you said it was called nightcap, or there's probably a final meeting the next morning. And was this was this par for the course for BFRO expeditions, or do you think it was a little bit more action than usual?
It was a little bit more action than usual to what they were saying, but they followed still all like the protocol, with like the expeditions and like the meetings and whatnot. It was still really fun though.
That's awesome. Yeah. Would you do this again?
Oh, totally. I'm doing this again in July.
Wow. Do you think it's going to be the same area or?
No, this is different. This place is different.
Gotcha.
They actually, one of the reasons why I'm not revealing the place is not just because it's private property, but it's because this was an Olympic project and BFRO collision. Everyone played their part. Everyone was happy. Everyone had their fun. So this was a really fun expedition.
Yeah, that's awesome that you were able to experience that, because you're right. That is a very rare event, and I don't think I've heard of too many other events happening like that in the past in that area. So that's awesome. It sounds like then after that, you pretty much all went your own ways, but you'd said there's something else that had also happened to you at a point.
Oh, yeah. So this place, we kind of went all of our separate ways from there, and people kind of the Facebook page that they kept for this kind of died off, and everyone kind of went those separate ways. This was back in last July, but then February, this was recent, this last February, one of my really close friends was coming back from college early, and I wanted to hang out with him, so we went out to his property. He lives out in Port Orchard, and there was an old cemetery in that area, and he wanted to show me it because they had just renovated it, because it was like, these were like graves going back to like the 1850s. Like, these are really old graves, and they renovated it so because they want to like just preserve the history, and he wanted to show me it because the contractors had just finished like the week prior. So we went up there, and it was just one of those things where it was just like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you just feel like something's watching you while you're up there the whole time. We tried to go back in the woods, and I was just telling him from my own personal experience, like, just the Bigfoot and going back on the previous expedition. He thought it was really cool too. And, we're in the woods, having fun, just two teenage young adults. And it was when we were walking out of the woods or out of the cemetery is when like weird stuff happened. I can't describe it. Like, coming back from the cemetery, we heard that's the part that I don't want to describe it as PTSD, because it was just like freaky to hear it again, but it was just that exact same 2x4 just snap coming back from the cemetery, and we're like already 25-30 yards away. We're walking down, and at that point I was like, okay, I'm walking back. Like, dude, this is hearing that 2 times in a row in a span of like 6 times, from 2 separate events is just weird, So we went all the way back. I walked all the way back. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but it was just more of that moment where it's just like, yeah, whatever it is just doesn't want me there, So we walked back again, but on the way back, we took a separate route, because if you know the layout of Port Orchard, it kind of like is a circle. So we walked all the way back around, and on our way back around to his house, this was really creepy. I actually got photos of it, and I sent this to a couple of the people in the BFRO, and they thought it was really cool too. We saw a peerage in the mountainside, because it was like a highway, and it kind of on the left hand side kind of turns down into a bank where there's like a riverbed, and then going up to the right hand side is like this huge steep hill, with like trees, stereotypical Pacific Northwest, like rainforest type like looks. But in the woods, there's this like gap in like the bushes. Coming down, there was these muddy footprints in the driveway, and like the driveway in the road, in the highway, and it goes all the way off into the river. The tracks go all the way down to the riverbank, and then on the other side through the river and up the other side. And this actually freaked me out, because it was the exact same type of lookage, I guess, if the ones from the previous summer were. Like, it's just the exact same style, single file, 4 feet apart, about the same size. These ones were definitely smaller. These ones were like 6 inches wide and about probably 15, 16 inches long. But I actually put my boot up next to it. I'm like, oh, these are small. Like, at first I thought this was somebody running down. But I put my boot up next to it, and I'm like, I wear a size 13 in men, and I'm like, this is at least 4 or 5 inches longer than my foot, and I can see like toes. Like, this is not okay. So me and my friend are freaking out, because we're just seeing like the track line, like just the breakage of the bushes coming down the hill and onto the road, and then just into the riverbed. And it looked relatively fresh too, because this is a highway, there's like mud on the road still. So like if cars are passing by, it'll ruin these like mud lines, So I just thought that was really freaky to see, in the middle of February of all things.
Yeah, that is wild. Did you say you got pictures of that?
Yeah, I got pictures of the track line and the footprints side by side. My friend got the track line, and I got the photo of the footprints of my boot right up next to it, of the best one, because they were all like, you could see the outline of the foot, but it wasn't like really defined, because this is on a highway. But the one, because it stepped in the gravel, and the gravel, I'm not kidding you, it like pushed the gravel down, and you could see the toe line, like where the toes were, because like just how heavy it was. I was just freaking out, because I'm like, this is gravel. Like, how is this like creating this in gravel, And I sent those a couple of my BFRO guys, and they thought they're the ones from the previous expedition. I still had their numbers and their contact information, and I sent it to them, and they thought it was really cool as well.
Jonathan, you have experienced some pretty cool things over the last, not even a year. And this is really your first foray into it. What do you hope to expect from when you go out again this year?
Honestly, I don't know if I'm I'm not expecting much, because I don't think it's going to happen. Like lightning doesn't strike twice in the exact same spot,
Sure.
So I'm not expecting much. I'm more of, because like I've developed friendships with these BFRO people. That's the thing, is that they don't tell you, is if you do this right and you are just a genuine good person, they're genuine good people too. So I'm more there just to hang out and have fun, because these guys are really cool. Like once you get to know them, they're pretty cool dudes. So I just want to go out and have fun. It's just Bigfoot's just a side piece,
Yeah, it's very weird that, if it's people where they tend to have the good intention when they go out, those people usually tend to have stuff more happen than it's a guy going out and he's like, oh, I'm just in it for the money and the fame, and you're probably not going to have too much happen, but that might just be coincidence. Who knows? I got to ask you the question that usually always gets asked, but do you have any thoughts as to what you think Bigfoot is, just from what you've experienced so far?
So, this is something that one of the Olympic Peninsula guys said, and I thought it was really profound, was that I know the reason why I think it's flesh and blood is because it leaves scat, leaves footprints, leaves hair. What also leaves footprints, scat, and hair? Deer, elk, moose, like every general animal, So it's like, I get the argument for saying that it's spiritual, but like also, anything else could be spiritual. So it's like, it just could be anything at that point. I'm more attached to the physical side of it, because it's like, if there wasn't, we call it Bigfoot because it leaves big foot tracks,
Right. True. Good point. Good point. So definitely flesh and blood. Do you are you thinking more of a ape type creature, or maybe something that's, a lost human type creature, or do you have any thoughts about that?
That's the part why I'm so curious, and I don't know, because like I myself, I don't know, I've just listened to a lot of these spiritual podcasts, if that makes sense, because I myself am a Christian, so a lot of my friends who've done this before, they just describe it as like a demonic thing. That's the part where I went out there, when I experienced this and I got so close to it, I didn't feel that weird like spiritual presence or whatever. I just more of just felt curiosity, which made me more inclined to think that I think this is more of just an animal, like a just a not half sentient, but more of like just an ape that just has a bit more of a brain to it,
Sure. So your friends, I'm gonna guess they're thinking that it's like some type of like Nephilim, or
yeah, that's what they think. I mean, as the old argument goes, there's two crowds. There's the flesh and blood, and they call them the woo crowd, or I don't know what they call them now.
No, that's pretty much dead on. That is pretty much the big distinction right now, which, there hasn't been one captured that we know of that's been studied. So, kind of who knows so far. But, man, Jonathan, it has been a fun chat with you. It's always interesting to see events like this from the viewpoint of someone that is, hasn't been going out for 20 years. Because I've talked to a few BFRO researchers, and they definitely have a certain viewpoint, but it's very cool to see things from someone who is new to the subject. And but it'd be interesting to, definitely keep in touch. It'd be interesting to see if anything happens in the future for you as well. But thank you so much for coming on. And how do people, if they want to go on their own expedition with the BFRO, how do they do that?
Like with the BFRO?
Yeah.
You just go on the BFR website and just like look at expeditions in your area. The fee, there is a fee, like it's like a $300 to $500 fee, and it sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about it from the place of that money is not really going to Matt Moneymaker. Like I know a lot of people have negative views towards Matt Moneymaker, which I don't really care too much. I don't really pay attention to the Bigfoot politics, But when you put it in the perspective that most of this money isn't going to him, it's actually going to the expedition leads, the guys that are literally driving out of their way from like Scott Taylor, for an example, he drove it from Oregon. A couple of guys drove it from Idaho. They're getting reimbursed for gas money because, I mean, like, you don't want to drive all the way from Boise and back or Portland and back, So it's like these guys are doing it for fun. They're doing it because they want to experience the attention, the love, and the dedication that they've put into this hobby to you guys. And they're trying to put it to you guys on a silver platter, showing that like years of experience they just want to give to you. All they want to do is just have a good time. And honestly, $300 to $500 for it. It's like, I think that's reasonable. It's really worth it. Like you couldn't put a price tag on that experience. It was just really cool.
Yeah. And I think the connections that you would make out of it and the people potentially you could meet at one of these events, that alone to me would probably be worth it in itself. I mean, you had, it sounds like you met OP members, and were able to chat with them. And I mean, that alone is awesome. So,
it is. It's actually, they're very rare and hard to get a hold of apparently. And so actually getting to meet them and like experiencing, like just talking to them, like, cause those guys are like veterans and they have years of experience, and just hearing their stories. Like I got some wild stories, and I love just listening to them, Oh,
I bet the stories that are shared on those expeditions are pretty wild, but I bet they also probably stay in the expedition.
Oh yeah, dude. I talked to a lot of guys a couple of the guys who actually worked on finding Bigfoot actually were there at the expedition, and they were telling me like behind the scenes, like the TV show, like how it went down, and it was just like really different. It was really cool, like hear somebody who worked behind the scenes, like tell how it works behind the scenes, like how weird it was,
Oh, that would be awesome. I can probably, I bet I can guess I can guess who those guys are, but I won't. But yeah, that's the cool thing about the Pacific Northwest events is you have some really cool people showing up. But Jonathan, thank you so much for for reaching out to me, and I'm glad we had this chat. I think this is a fun one. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you truly for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Jonathan's story stands out not just because of the cone-headed figure caught on thermal or the chilling crack of a branch at 11 o'clock at night, but because it reminds us how curiosity, sometimes in the form of a bagpipe, can lead to unexpected moments of connection, wonder, and maybe even contact. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, the Pacific Northwest, or just a seriously weird night in the woods. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show, and if you'd be willing to leave a review, it really helps more people find us. And hey, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially around the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, I'd love to hear from you. So please shoot me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.